Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be looking at Ubuntu Desktop. This is version 2204, right after this. So this came out on Thursday. That would have been the 21st, I believe, and it offers some new things. So the first thing is that it brings for us is a new look and feel, of course. Although if you're familiar with what's come from 2004 up until now, if you've gone through Impish and Groovy Gorilla, you've probably noticed that the changes aren't going to be all that much for you. So let's, I guess, as way of introduction, 2204 LTS, it brings more features and customization options. There's more performance and power efficiency. So if you're on a laptop with a battery, it should last a little bit longer. And there's more ways to integrate with your existing enterprise management tools. LTS, that is the flagship desktop using GNOME 42, in quotes, is supported for 5 years for updates and security patching. Other flavors of 2204 like Kubuntu and Lubuntu and some of those, Ubuntu Budgie, those are only supported for 3 years. So the big change is this is a claim from Canonical that they have updated from GNOME 40 to 42 for the shell and most libraries. This is very carefully worded because it isn't actually a full-blown upgrade to version 42 of GNOME. If you've seen my video on GNOME 42, you can go back and view it. It has a number of features which you will not find in Ubuntu 2204 because they were not implemented. So this gives us kind of a halfway point between GNOME 40 and GNOME 41. It's actually GNOME 42 and GNOME 41 is what you get. But there is a snaps that is still implementing some libraries for 3.38, which I find kind of interesting. So this provides a range of benefits, from a streamlined user interface, a more compact on-screen display notification, and there's a snappier, no pun intended. They're adding additional features for those that are using touchpads or touch screens. So, and as well as they have provided a much needed multiple monitor support. Most of the GNOME applications have only been updated to GNOME 41, as we said. As far as customization options, Ubuntu's Yarrow theme continues to be refined. 2204 features a new accent color picker, and that allows you to customize your desktop a little bit more. Their wallpaper themes are available. I guess they held a contest and they pick whichever one wins. This year they just allowed all of the entries to be included, so you'll find a much larger selection of wallpapers than before. There are themes for light and dark modes, but again, if you've come from previous releases of Ubuntu on the non-LTS versions, you will have already noticed those things being there. Although the default option last time was dark, this time it's light. Canonical claims that the Linux desktop performance has had a massive upgrade for this release. I'll say it twice just because I have to prove that. And at the end of this, I'll be showing the results of our benchmarks test in comparison with other releases of Ubuntu, Debian, and some other favorites that you all have. So you'll find that at the end of this video. GNOME in 42, in quotes, has triple buffering, which increases performance. Canonical claims that the latest Intel and Raspberry Pi graphics drivers will now see double the frame rate when navigating the desktop. But Canonical says that AMD and NVIDIA graphics card users should see an significant improvement as well, although they don't empirically identify how much we can expect from those. Wayland is now the default display server unless you're using an NVIDIA GPU, in which case you will be using X11 because those changes. Wayland does support NVIDIA, but apparently those changes did not make it into this release. Gnome 42 also brings a new power profile options that allows user to choose between power and different performance and power. I think it says balanced and power saving. There's also Active Directory integration, which for those of you in enterprise environments, you'll find that even though that was introduced in 2004 LTS, that you will now find full group policy support, privilege escalation, and remote script execution. Ubuntu 2204 LTS is also available on the Windows subsystem for Linux. You can download it now directly from the Microsoft Store and install it, but if you're using an existing Ubuntu WSL app, you'll have to wait until 2204.1 in order for the update to work. Currently, the 2204 LTS version as deployed will not upgrade correctly on those designs. Snaps and standard packages. Firefox is only provided as a snap package, and there is no option to install one from a .deb unless you go get the .deb and install it. Install the package from somewhere else. LibreOffice and Thunderbird, they are still using standard packages, and both are updated to the latest releases. There's a number of toolchain updates, though you can find those on your site. I'm not going to go through all those here. Other updates, you'll find that Systemd now implements out-of-memory management service for the user space by default. Other security improvements, NFTables is now the default backend for firewalls. However, just as a word of the wise, that could prevent Docker from operating in your environment because Docker does not currently support NFTables. So you may have to make a different change for that. One of the more unfortunate things that Canonical made is they have disabled SSH RSA by default in OpenSSH. So unfortunately, and the reason why this is unfortunate is normally when you disable features like that, you provide some kind of notice of deprecation. The other thing is SCP under the OpenSSH now offers a -S command line option, which is to use SFTP mode rather than the SCP mode for moving files. Canonical claims that this is a newer, safer method, and it will become the default in the future, so you might want to take note of that. So I have this running under boxes. Some overall impressions of this system is that, it doesn't look a whole lot different when you first come into the system. I mean, we see you'll see the typical down the side. Now this defaults to down here. So if you're wondering, I had changed that. So if you're wondering where your home folder is, that now defaults to the bottom right-hand corner. You can change that in your settings if you want to have your new file folders show up on this side instead of down here. One of the things you will notice, now I have run this a couple of times already. It takes about 10 seconds or so to launch the first time. If we launch it in subsequent, it doesn't take nearly as long to come up, but it is visibly slower. If that's a problem for you, then you'll have to do whatever you do with it. Destroy it, put in whatever you want. Now, Thunderbird is a standard app, so it comes up just fine. As far as the way the look and the feel of the files are concerned, is a new. This looks new to me. That this design looks newer. And I'll talk about those two files, why I created those in a minute. And then we have our standard apps down here. Now this, of course, isn't here. I added that one. But let's go look at the store for just a moment. So again, just like always, your updates will show up here. One of the things that you'll have to pay attention to is this. It's going to default to snap install on almost all of the apps. Now there are some that I hit that did go, but these are down at the bottom like it's an afterthought. So be careful. You have multiple places to install Krita, but if you're looking for the .deb, it's at the bottom, and not all applications have a .deb. Let's see, I think Blender does, or maybe no. Let's go all the way to the bottom. Nope. Blender only is offered as a snap. So, you know, they're not telling us everything, right? They're not telling us everything about which ones are snap and which ones are not. Bitwarden, only offered as a snap. So I have not tried to install the Flatpak, and I could do that and just go to Flatpak if you don't feel comfortable with this. But all right, let's go look at some of the customization offerings that are here. So the first thing you have in appearance here is it defaults to light, and so we can change that to dark. Your theme appears in the background here. And so you can change that to whatever color you prefer. I'm going to go with that. As far as the background is concerned, notice that it says this is applying only to the dark style. So I can create that one for the dark style, go back to my appearance and change to light, and it's going to change back. So if you wonder why it's happening, it's because you now have a split between light and dark. So I can have one theme for light and one theme for dark. Your new icons, this is the position where you will find your home folder. See the top right, top left, bottom right. We'll put it on the top left. That's where I prefer to find it. You can also set your panel size here. If you want it on the bottom of your screen, you can do that. And then you'll notice this slides over to pick up the real estate. As far as other kinds of things that you can do, you can auto hide the dock. So now it's not going to do anything for a few minutes, but it may take actually a restart. But anyway, that's what it has there. So other things here. Now this is one of the areas that I hit a concern on when I first looked at the versions of the files. So before we do anything else here. So I have put in. It's currently taking 1.22 gig of memory. After a boot, it's about 732 meg, and of course now the app caches are starting to kick in, so it's cranking up and headed north to take additional memory. 116 tasks are running, 341 threads. That's a lot higher than in previous releases. Also, the CPU load has gone up some, but I do have this menu open, and if I close it, it'll probably quiet down a little bit. Yeah, it's dropped down now to 5.8. So yeah, running Gnome applications will do that. They will check for events. Let's see, NeoFetch. I have installed on this one Git, NeoFetch, HTOP, and Glances. So that has added additional libraries to my system. So I'm running at about 1,766 packages, and you'll notice that there are 9 snaps. So let's take a look at that. And we have Bear, we have Core, we have Firefox, and this is what caught my eye. So we have GNOME 338 packaged here. I'm not sure what is in this, but we can probably find out. And then we have the GTK common themes. Now, these have not been updated in quite some time, so I can understand that. And this might be here to support this. But yeah, you have the Snap Store, Snapd, and then the desktop integrations that we talked about for Active Directory. Those are there as well. So Ubuntu is definitely headed down the Snap trail, and with the preference of packages being installed under Snap. So if that's a problem for you, then it probably is not the release for you. For Glances, let's take a look and see what we have here. So the first thing is they have defaulted this to turn off the display of the host IP or the IP address that is public facing on the internet, which is good. 36% of memory is being consumed right now. We have 1.4 gig used. out of the 4 gig that I've given it. I think it was about 1.2 on the last release of Ubuntu, so it's gone up about 200 meg or so. So let's see. Let's make sure this is the one for Debian first. Yeah, this is. So I went through here. These are all the packages that are installed. And so I did a grep on Gnome. And I'm just going to create another window to compare these here. Because I started seeing, the version numbers are right here, so I started seeing things like this. And Bluetooth 3.34, 3.34 Bluetooth. You know, quite honestly, that's probably the reason why Bluetooth doesn't work very well on most Linux distributions, is because you'll notice that a lot of these packages here are 41. Now on the versions of Fedora, they're 42. So there are no 41 mixtures on Fedora at all. They're all 42. But these are going to be the same. I saw the same kind of versioning that's going on Fedora as well. That's why I was a little concerned. Mahjong, who cares? Well, maybe you do. Maybe you care about Mahjong. I don't care about Mahjong. Here's one here that's version 40. This, you know, let me just, so I'm not too worried about the application space, but I do find, like, here's one that's 43, 42, 42. Here's one down here that's 3.34. Some of the lib versions are at different, now that's probably to go with the Bluetooth. But we have some libraries that are beyond this. They're 42. So let me just tell you what my thoughts here are on this. I got some at 336 and 328 and 3. So what happens in systems where you have a mixed number of versions? So what can happen is that, especially if we're pulling up dynamic libraries, and I don't know if these are, they could be static and compiled in, but if I bring down updates or in the future and the applications don't catch up with it, you know, they're not at the same level, or if they're running like this where I have version 41 apps trying to use version 42 libraries, it is possible that my APIs may fail in unpredictable ways. Because if I have mismatches in the calling number of arguments, or the type of the arguments has changed, I could create failures on that application that occur seemingly to you in an intermittent fashion. Well, we all know that intermittent program problems are not fun. They take a long time to diagnose. One of the things that IBM would do, and they were, I mean, you can say what you want about IBM, but they were really good about maintaining not doing this kind of thing. And they would do, if they had to do that for a short term in order to keep the release, get the release out on time, usually that's the reason why this happens, is because there's pressure from marketing to get a release out on a certain date or else. So what IBM would do is they would do a range of compatibility testing to make sure that those things were fully functional against the APIs. Now, there is always undeclared APIs that somehow get used because somebody finds out that, some developer finds out that, oh, this is a faster way of getting the job done. And that's where you usually reach these killer problems with systems. So in my experience, this is generally considered a really bad idea to mix modes of software versions on Linux. Now, those of you that have been around a while probably know that the very first problems that you had probably encountered with Linux was this very problem. So I know of people that have brought down, versions, trying to run KDE alongside of Gnome in the past versions have run into all kinds of problems because KDE does in their libraries does have Gnome software, and if you happen to bring one of those down and they're not at the same version, you've got chaos that occurs on your system. So That's just one problem that you may see with this. So yeah, I'm kind of starting through kind of my final thoughts here. So the other thing is that if you're reading through the release notes, read them carefully, because there's a section there about the OEM version. 5.15, this is the default release. Now you'll notice in the release notes that the OEM version of Ubuntu is 5.17, so that is a little bit confusing. They don't call that out, and they should. They should fix their release notes that are in the community forums. As far as how much space this is taking, we're about 9.2 gig. Now, I was about, I think it was 7.8 gig without installing anything else. So that's how much those packages get and all that have taken up for me. Now, I've already installed Linus here, so I'm going to go ahead and run it just to be complete. Let's see what's going on here. All right, so we have the typical. I'll need to check this too and see if NFTables works, and we'll try that and see what we actually get. See, but now the firewalls are not declared, so I would have to set one up. So I'll probably do that in a future version of a video. Yeah, that's the same. This is the same. We still have the issues with systemd. No one is addressing it. Core dump needs to be disabled. That's the same. Hashing around the same. Impact of before. Yeah, we had the /home temp and var thing, meaning that these need to be on separate partitions is their recommendation, and that's just to protect the root file system from a device full. DevSums needs to be installed. Show versions. Then we have these 4 protocols that have to be restricted or disabled or enabled, one of the two. Yeah, this is all the same. There's nothing different here. And so we had an overall score of 67. So nothing earth-shattering, nothing improved either. So for their security improvements are not adding to the bottom line. Now, one of the other things I want to do is go look at. Let's see if. Let's see, we're probably going to have to install it. Yep. Let's see what keys it generates. Looks like the 2559. Well, I see an RSA key here. Well, they may have reversed on that decision, because there is an RSA key here. Yep. So they may have reversed on that. Yeah, they probably felt maybe, but I saw the notice that said, hey, that they disabled this, but it is not. It is not disabled. So they haven't done that yet. It may be threatening, so I'd watch out for a future release on that one. So final thoughts on this release. If you're coming up from the normal chain of 21.10 and going to 22.04, you're probably not going to notice any huge difference, other than maybe some features on being able to set the accent colors, I guess, and then some annoyances. The other thing to be aware of is that the push for moving to snaps is full on. You will find it isn't just Firefox that gets installed by default, but a number of them that get installed by default, and some of them that's the only way you can get them installed. So yeah, if you want to use this release and you don't particularly want to use snaps, you prefer to use Flatpaks, then I need to try to enable it on their store and see if it works still. They say that they support Flatpak, but I don't know. I haven't tested it. The other final thought is in the version mismatch, I am not overly concerned, but doing that is considered a bad practice. Stay tuned, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look and see how it performs. Hope to see you all again real soon, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And bye for now.